video, I'm going to talk about what practice actually is. And that might sound silly, but with some of my adult students, I've had conversations recently, and they're surprised when they learn that musicians don't typically, when they're practicing a piece, start at the beginning and just play to the end. Start at the beginning and play to the end. They're surprised when I tell them that because they think I guess they sort of need permission to just work on part of it or start in the middle or just practice a small section at a time or even a small amount of time in a given setting. And so those are some different things that have come up recently. And so I spend a lot of time with my students getting them to see that you can accomplish a lot in a really short amount of time, particularly for sections of a piece where you might have, like, you might know the whole first page, and then the second page, there might be a really tough spot up at the top. Maybe it's a couple lines long. And composers actually seem to like to do this. I don't know why, if they're just feeling sadistic or what it is, but they will often have one section of the piece that's much tougher. And sometimes it's easy to ignore that. But if we jump right in there and tackle that first, and then play the whole piece, then the whole thing will improve, and then you won't feel, like you'll feel like you're progressing, and a really great sense of satisfaction once you get the whole piece. And then, of course, there's a difference between playing the piano, just playing pieces you love, and practice. And I think that's something that people are surprised by as well. Because, the reason you're taking lessons is so that you can play the piano. And play being the operative word. Play is important for not only children, but I think all of us as we go through life. We need to do things that are playful and that make life enjoyable. So there are times when you should just sit down and play pieces that you love. But then if you are actually working on a piece in order to learn more, to improve, to increase the number of pieces you're learning or just the depth of your repertoire, then there are different strategies for that. And that is one thing, like I said, that has been kind of eye-opening for my students, that I don't always have to start at the beginning. But the natural tendency of our brains is, with a lot of things, to start at the beginning and go to the end. I mean, that's usually how we would read a book or watch a movie or a show. Start at the beginning, go to the end. So I know my teacher in graduate school, Mr. Mulladoo, used to say, well, then start at the end. Play the last two lines of the piece first, practice those. So then you are always going to the end, and then back up and maybe do the last three lines. And so there are ways we can sort of override that tendency to want to always start at the beginning. Now, then another thing that comes up is the amount of time that you should be spending at the piano. And so how much is actually enough? Well, certainly in order to master a skill and to learn something well, we do need to spend a good amount of time with it. I can't say to you that you can just spend 5 minutes practicing the piano every single day and you'll be accomplished, or you will have mastered it in a year. It does take time. However, you don't have to sit down in blocks of 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours of time to feel like you are accomplishing something. And sometimes sitting for an hour or two, you may be distracted and you may not get a whole lot done. So practicing is a combination of time spent and mind spent. And I know as I've gotten older, and probably for a lot of us, our attention spans seem to have been shortened with everything that's available to us for entertainment and for distractions. Thinking particularly of digital distractions, but there are a lot of distractions in life. If I'm home, I might be thinking about a dirty kitchen or the laundry that needs to be done. So for me, sometimes sitting down for just 10 minutes and really setting a plan of a few goals to accomplish helps me to really to just do a better job at reaching my goals, and my practice is a lot more productive. And then I actually help the piece to improve. Versus sitting for an hour and just playing through and getting and becoming sort of mindless about what I'm doing. And I've done that many times. So on paper, it would look like it was more impressive if I said, "Oh, I practiced for 3 hours today." But if I knew that 2 of those hours were just sort of going over the same things and not really helping the piece to improve, then I think it would be much better to have spent two 15-minute blocks and really tackled some tough spots. So those are just some things to keep in mind. So I rarely tell my students, you have to practice 15 minutes or 30 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour. Although those are some good guidelines. Sometimes with young students, they'll just sort of watch the clock and do mindless repetitions. So again, I think if you give your students an assignment sheet, or if you're learning and if you have an assignment that you're working on, it's good to layer that. You might want to start with a warm up, then maybe something new that you need to tackle, and then a review piece that you love to play, and you can sort of layer your practice like that. The other thing about practicing is, you can work on a small section of a piece and then really help the whole piece to improve. And even within that small section, there are layers. There are all kinds of different musical elements, from the intervals, the notes that are actually on the page and how those feel in your fingers, the rhythm that's used, the moves that might be happening. And then for a pianist, you have to coordinate your hands. Sometimes the right hand plays by itself, sometimes the left hand, sometimes together. And so you can break that one line down even further into practice steps. And I actually just created a course called Your Piano Toolkit Practice Steps, and it takes you through all these practice steps that I use with elementary students through intermediate and even early advanced. And they can help you to be able to see music in terms of the layers of how it's written. And that can help you break down your practice even further into manageable sections, so that you can put it together and feel like you have accomplished something. So I will put a link to that in the comments here, but it's also on my website, which is on my YouTube channel. So I would encourage you to check that out. Maybe you're a teacher and you have a student who you think that would really that would help them, and it's something that could give you a common language to talk about. You might have a transfer student who, and maybe they had a few years of lessons and you're not really sure what they know. This could be a great way for both of you to get on the same page. Alternatively, you could be an adult student studying the instrument, and you're looking for a framework and a little more guidance. This could be a great resource for you. The course includes 6 videos and downloadable PDFs, as well as some of the musical scores that I use in the videos to illustrate the practice steps. So, or maybe you find yourself a vocal teacher or a guitar teacher, and someone's asked you to teach the piano, and it's maybe not your first instrument, so you could use a little direction. Well, this could be a great way to accomplish that. You could watch all the videos in less than 2 hours. And so it would really be something you could tackle in a weekend, and I think it can be something you can refer back to as you learn more and more pieces. We learn to practice and think of breaking things down like tools for learning. So I would encourage you to check that out, and also to share this, to like, subscribe, and comment. And I'd love to hear from you about your own practice or about what you're seeing with your students. Also, if there are topics that you would like to hear more about from me, please let me know. So I hope you've enjoyed learning more about this today.